Hello and welcome to the latest Royal Roundup from TalkTV. So, pop the kettle on. This is The Royal Tea. I'm Sarah Hewson. Coming up, did hospital staff attempt to access the Princess of Wales's private medical records? We'll also be discussing the latest sighting of Kate at the weekend. Plus, there is the latest on the Sussex rebrand. Joining me today to discuss all of that and more are the Daily Mirror's royal editor, Russell Myers, the former royal editor of the Mail on Sunday, Emily Andrews, and TalkTV's royal correspondent, Rupert Bell. Hello to all of you. Now, the hospital where the Princess of Wales was treated has launched an investigation over claims staff attempted to access her private medical records. The London clinic says all appropriate investigatory, regulatory and disciplinary steps will be taken. There are 3 members of staff being investigated. Now, Russell, you broke the story on Wednesday, and I mean, we've had many twists in this story since the news first emerged about the Princess of Wales going into hospital. But this is incredibly serious if it's true, isn't it?
Well, it is, as you know, major security breach, very damaging for the hospital involved. You know, the London clinic has looked after members of the royal family, celebrities, prime ministers, presidents, you name it, for decades, and has had an unblemished record throughout that time. So I think huge investigation. The probe by the Information Commissioner's Office, which is a criminal investigation, will have to get to the bottom of it, and very quickly, because I think that this story will only grow. You know, and the damage limitation for the hospital is paramount at the moment.
Just to go back to the basics of this, what do we know about the potential breach?
Well, I understand there's up to 3 people are involved, and they have allegedly tried to access the private medical data of the Princess of Wales. The breach occurred after she had been discharged. We know that she was in there for 13 days in January for an abdominal surgery. Now, the backdrop on this is that both Kensington Palace and Kate herself have been particularly guarded about her private medical information. She didn't want to talk about it. You know, I understand that's something that she may wish to do in the future, but that'll be completely on her own terms. So it's very, very concerning, not only for the hospital, but I think, you know, Kensington Palace as well, who are notified immediately, are deeply concerned that this could have happened while Kate was being treated at the hospital.
Because Emily, you know, she's one of the most photographed women in the world, and as we've seen over the course of the past few months, and particularly the last few weeks, there is this insane amount of interest in her, but she is still entitled to confidentiality and medical privacy, regardless of who she is.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, obviously, as Russell has said, you know, the London Clinic are holding an internal investigation. They had to report themselves to the Information Commissioner. That's one of the rules and regulations within medical data and, in fact, information in general. If there's a breach, within 72 hours, you have to report yourself. Obviously, like all of us, she's completely entitled to privacy. I think partly that perhaps one of the reasons that perhaps staff felt they might want to have a quick look is because they were perhaps caught up in the whole brouhaha, as much as everybody else has been on social media, in the media, you know, over the dinner table, WhatsApps from all of our friends to us. I mean, I think asking, where is Kate? Is she okay? What's going on? Are those pictures real? Are those not pictures real? I think it's important. Well, we also mentioned that there was some recent polling that asked, I think by Sky News, that asked whether people had heard about the controversy, for want of a better word, with that Photoshop Mother's Day picture, you know, Kate's health, William pulling out of his godfather's memorial earlier last month. 51% of people had heard about the story. Interestingly, of I think 2,300 people polled, 49% hadn't. So I think it is important to remember that not everybody is talking about this, but certainly those of us who sort of work in the royal bubble, it does feel as if people are, and perhaps those members of staff also wanted to find out as well. But it is illegal to do that, and she is another patient who's had major surgery, and that should not have been happening.
No, and for the London clinic, which, you know, as Russell set out, you know, prides itself on its very high-profile list of clients, and in order to have high-profile clients, you have to have a reputation for the utmost discretion. this is really bad.
The CEO will be taking a long, hard look at his protocols that has allowed this to happen. But presumably, because it's such a high-profile hospital, the staff are pretty vetted anyway, because they're presumably the best around because of the kind of hospital it is. But you feel for the three people, maybe they thought they could make some money out of it. And it's all part of the feeding frenzy that seems to have developed since Kate went into hospital over all things. And maybe, just like the man made the money on the video last week, it's the same sort of thing. Those poor, maybe they just felt that they could make some money out of it. If it's that, then that really is just desperately sad. And the London Clinic, presumably there's some crisis management meetings going on as we speak.
Yeah, because, I mean, it wasn't just the Princess of Wales who chose the London Clinic for her treatment. It was also where the King received his treatment.
Yeah, I mean, that was certainly the fear from Buckingham Palace, that the King's data had been accessed as well, and we revealed yesterday that wasn't the case, so I think they're breathing a sigh of relief. But certainly I think that the ICO's investigation needs to delve very, very deeply into who had access to the records, why were they accessing them, where were they stored, and I think, you know, it's two-pronged. Even possibly three, because you've got the ICO looking at the individuals, the ICO looking at the hospital, and Scotland Yard potentially getting involved as well, because despite the ICO sort of adjudicating over a criminal investigation, there may be a further plot that Scotland Yard want to get involved in.
And also, Russell, is it the case, we don't know, do we? Or maybe we do, maybe you can help. Did anyone actually look at her medical records, or was it just that there was someone tried to look?
I think that's definitely part of the live investigation that they're looking into, and whether they were paper records lying around, whether they weren't stored properly, that would be something for the clinic to look into, or whether it was accessed via computer
In
records.
which case, it's traceable, really, isn't
Oh, absolutely.
it?
You would well imagine so, yeah.
Rupert mentioned the video of the Princess of Wales. William and Kate filmed at the weekend, Emily, visiting their local farm shop. A video which, on the face of it, should have, you would think, put an end to the conspiracy theories about, you know, the missing Kate. Where is Kate? Because there she was, walking with her husband at her local store.
She bought some bread, Sarah.
She bought some bread.
We can exclusively reveal.
But did she? Because
it
wasn't her.
It wasn't her.
So this is the conspiracy theorists actually doubled down, having seen this video, didn't they? Because it can't possibly have been Kate, they claim.
They do. First of all, I think all four of us here have obviously met the Princess of Wales. We know what her PPOs look like. I think all four of us can be very safe in the fact that we can say it was Kate. But I think it's just another example, or the latest example, of how Kensington Palace have completely lost the narrative on this. They've completely lost any control. And if we go back, as Russell said earlier, to, you know, the beginning of, well, sort of mid-January, it was a week after Kate's birthday, when we were told that she was admitted for successful abdominal surgery. At the time, it was quite a lengthy statement, and they said, we won't be providing a running commentary. She thanks everybody for their best wishes. She's very sorry that she'll have to cancel engagements, which then happened. But they hoped that statement, where they said she will be hopefully returning to work at Easter, and of course, even those of us, I mean, I read it and thought, will it be after the Easter holidays, after the children have gone back to school? But of course, at face value, a lot of people thought, you know, Easter Sunday, we might see her at St George's Chapel. We may still, we will see. But I think Kensington Palace hoped that statement would hold. In my opinion,
it did for a bit.
It did for a bit, but then I think that absolute line that William and Kate have drawn, quite understandably, between their public and their private lives, partly to protect their young children. You know, George is 10, Charlotte 8, and Louis is 5. And partly because of William's experience with his mother and the tragic death of her at the age of 15. Also because William and Kate are very private people. They're not perhaps as you know, discursive perhaps as others. And so quite understandably, they drew that very absolutist line. Having said all of that, in this social media age, in this age of multimedia and 24-hour television, can you really adhere to that maxim of never complain, never explain? When things started to bubble up on social media, those of us, you know, who do real reporting, were able to ignore it. But then, for me, when Prince William pulled out of his godfather's memorial service with just 45 minutes to go, citing only a personal matter, Kensington Palace refusing to comment and basically saying, no, nothing to see here, it's OK. For me, that couldn't hold, and that just exacerbated the situation.
Rupert, you took a sharp intake of breath there.
Well, no, the Kensington Palace PR team, at the end of this whole saga, they have got to sort out, manage the PR, and it may be, are they being strong enough with William and Kate and saying, we've got to get control of this? Because obviously they want, William and Kate, that is, want to control the narrative their way. But they haven't. So they've got to have the intelligence now to review and say, we now need to look at it in a different light now to stop all this conspiracy theorist rubbish and everything that's going on now. It's a different environment with the landscape now. So that's what's got to happen. And they've got to get people who actually understand, so to protect them more than anything. Because what we've got now, they're not being protected.
But the problem is, Rupert, what happens if the comms team at KP are excellent and brilliant at their jobs? What if they did give all those options to the Prince and Princess of Wales and said, well, for instance, you could make a very strongly worded statement on behalf of your wife. Ma'am, you could have done pictures. I quite understand why she might not have wanted to do stills or videos. Quite understand why they might have said no to that. But what happens if they did give them all that options and then the Prince and Princess of Wales keep saying no? Therein
lies the problem. So maybe...
I mean, with the doctored photograph, I mean, that is an example of this, isn't it? Because, for example, PA said they were waiting and urgently trying to get clarification from Kensington Palace before they issued a kill notice. And the picture agencies were trying to speak directly to Kensington Palace to get an answer on, you know, what this photo is. They didn't get one. Yeah, and so in the end, they had to issue those kill notices, which then propelled this story.
The issue, I think,
onto the front pages.
You know, I think it's again an issue for William and Kate to potentially go away and review, but I think they've been badly let down by the institution as well, because somebody should have had, if you take the photograph, for example, somebody should have had eyes on that picture. And it seems as though they've just received it from the boss, put it out on social media, put it out to the agencies, and just, you know, forgot about it. And I think that is
they're advertising
serious
a new member of the comms team, aren't they? A job for £25,000. I noticed in the job description it did talk about an eye for detail, which you know was perhaps lacking. Certainly lacking when it came to that photograph and the scrutiny of it.
Full-time job?
I don't know.
Yes, it will be.
It will be a junior role.
The pay is not great. That's part of the issue. I mean, they do have very good people who work for them, but the pay is not great, and so it tends to be more, you know, younger people who work for them. And I don't want to be too critical of Kate and William, because I feel very, very sorry for both of them, and particularly for Kate, who, after all, just wanted to put out a nice picture of her and her children. But we have been here before, actually, guys. We have been here before after the Caribbean and during the Caribbean tour, which you were on, Russell. You know, they were badly burnt by the iconography and the image from that tour. Again, very unfortunate.
I mean, William did address it in his
William
speech
had to address it. So it's not as if, you know, that they were inside that kind of cage of the football pitch, and then they were sort of shaking hands with people outside. It looked awful. There was the, you know, the recreation of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip's sort of, you know, 1950s, 60s look photograph in that, you know, Jeep, and it looked dated and tired and colonial and terrible. So it's not as if we haven't been here with their royal imagery, and they have done things to try and address that. They've taken on Rishi Sunak's former personal photographer, who's a brilliant guy and a great photographer, and I just think they maybe have they not learnt the lessons.
Well, I do think we need to take a step
in today's society rather than, you know, harking back to old PR diktats from the past. I think that's something. There will be a review of all of this at Kensington Palace, and that's something that definitely have to look into.
But where we are now, is there any way to regain control of this narrative, or is the only way this is going to sort of peter out when we see the Princess of Wales back?
It's got to be organic.
There's nothing they can do now, really, is there? Because you know, this has spiralled out of all control.
And listen, the genie is well out of the bottle, and I think that they need to almost just move on, try and forget about it. Obviously, there will be intense interest over the next couple of weeks. When is Kate coming back to work? We understand that she's, you know, doing some work at home, preparing for her comeback. As you said, she might be at St George's Chapel for Easter Sunday. Then it will be, what's the first engagement? My view is that would be an ample opportunity, a good opportunity for her to be amongst family.
On Easter Sunday.
On Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
It's not a single engagement where she's talking and the focus is centred on her.
It will be her,
safety and
William, the
numbers.
children,
Absolutely,
walking
yeah.
into St George's
But there
Chapel.
will be intense, interest in her return. And I suppose the only way that they can move on is to try and look forward.
Because some people have said, why hasn't Prince William said anything, when he's been out and about in Sheffield or doing, engagements for his Earthshot Prize? And the honest answer is because he does not want to give any kind of credence to the kind of craziness that's been ongoing. Also, he has a duty to whatever engagement he is at. He can't suddenly say, hang on a sec, guys, this very important homeless work that we're all talking about, and by the way, sign up to my Homewards, work, etc. Oh, I'm just going to say that in that, video, it was Kate, it was my wife. It's so undignified.
And if we take a step back from this, actually, we don't know what has been going on behind the doors of Adelaide Cottage. We don't know what has happened to Kate. We don't know how ill she's been, and we don't know the kind of trauma that they have undergone as a family, and the kind of 3 children here, young children, that they're trying to protect. If you look at it on a human level, there is an instinct to protect.
A lot of people have forgotten that.
Yeah.
And taken
Absolutely.
leave of their senses.
Absolutely.
I think that, if there's something to come out of this, people need to take a step back and remember there is a woman at the centre of this who's had very serious surgery. She said that she needed that time to rest and recover and then would be back to her duties, and people have forgotten that.
Well, and in terms of people forgetting that and the conspiracy theorists, I mean, there's individuals who are peddling conspiracy theories who are profiting monumentally from this, with millions and millions of clicks on the videos. But I wonder, does it also go beyond individuals? We're talking about potential kind of bot factories here,
Yeah,
aren't
absolutely.
we?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very serious indeed. I mean, the concept of misinformation has been widely covered both in the US and UK elections, but you're now talking about Russian troll farms peddling misinformation about the health of an individual. I mean, that is absolutely incredible, and it's gone ballistic. It's into the stratosphere now. So I think that you can't get a hold of that until you try and have a PR strategy based on information, and unfortunately that's been quite lacking.
I think that Russell's absolutely right, and it's not just Russian troll farms. I mean, kind of there's been, evidence of Saudi troll farms used to kind of troll Amber Heard, for example. And I think that it is this destabilisation of the West and the destabilisation of the trust in the institutions of which we hold dear. Democracy is one of our most vaunted and most trusted
Prized
assets. So if you can start dissension and lack of trust in institutions like the British royal family, which have historically been, very trusted and very, revered around the world, then that destabilises what we in the Western democracy kind of hold dear. And I think there is definitely a part of that.
It feels, even with that video going out last week, obviously all the conspiracy theories that came about afterwards have, though, because of that, that might just encourage more public then to start filming and feel, well, it's happened then, it's off limits now, we can do whatever we like, because of that has set a precedent. Because they haven't controlled the narrative, and we've had to rely on someone just suddenly seeing them in the shop and going, come on, walk towards me, and he's made a few quid out of it.
But I think when they, wherever they are around Windsor, around Bucklebury, where Kate's parents are, in Norfolk, where Amber Hall is, their neighbours and local residents are fiercely protective, actually, of them, and do tend to rally around and don't want to see their privacy intruded into, because they do want them to be a part of their local communities.
We've known that Kate and William have been seen out and about in Windsor over the last
They've been going
couple
to
of
school.
weeks, and also popping to the shops or walking in the park. So you talk about the closed knit communities. They've actually safeguarded them from a lot of this, and unfortunately, it takes on a mind of its own when members of the public or social media gets involved. Unfortunately.
And let's talk about the job of being a member of the royal family, because the Prince of Wales has been on duty this week, and he said he hopes that his homelessness project will ease the pressure facing local councils. Prince William visited housing initiatives in Sheffield on Tuesday to learn how the issue was being tackled. When the topic of childhood was raised by the City Council's chief executive, William immediately remarked on the success of his wife's early years projects. He said, "We're venturing into my wife's territory. She needs to be sat here to hear this. And as we were discussing, you know, that when they do these engagements, they want the focus to be on the engagements, not on all of this. But actually, you know, you can't avoid these kind of questions, and everyone jumps on any slight mention of the Princess of Wales, Emily.
No, indeed. And actually, that's quite a sort of nice way, I think, for William to be able to mention his wife. Yes, they're still married. Yes, he's still living with her. All of that kind of thing. Mentioning her work. We have to focus on the work, please. And obviously, this is a really interesting development from the Centre for Early Childhood, which is kind of Kate's big kind of project. I think when she went a visit to Denmark, maybe 18 months, 2 years ago, she saw this kind of tool being used. Actually, it's more like a scale. So it's almost like a kind of evaluation of a baby and how he or she communicates, its eye movements, his or her speech. Obviously, babies can't speak, but the noises that they make and the kind of hand movements that they use. And so it enables a health visitor or a professional to be able to look and evaluate how a baby is developing.
Emotionally and socially.
Exactly, yes. Emotionally and socially. It's been trialled in 2 NHS trusts in Humber and South Warwickshire, I think with health visitors primarily on those, yes, in those NHS trusts. The study's been deemed successful. It's funded by the Centre for Early Childhood, and I imagine, they haven't said this, but I imagine that they hope maybe that other NHS trusts will roll it out.
Well, that's been the recommendation of the review that's come out today, that it has had overwhelmingly positive results and that it should be rolled out more widely to health visitors. So, I mean, that's a reminder of the work that's been going on, and no doubt the Princess of Wales has been across that, regardless of the fact she's out of sight.
Yeah, the palace was sort of reluctant to say that she'd been working from home, so sat in bed with her laptop, but she has...
That was me this morning, that was me this morning!
But she has been kept abreast of it, and I think that tells you the sort of focus for her is very much, you know, rest and recuperate, but looking forward, as we said earlier, about Kensington Palace's strategy must now be to look to the future, and that's very much what she's doing.
And if you're planning the strategy of her comeback, focusing on that charity work and what's her life's work.
They've got, and actually,
it's got to be at the core of it, hasn't it?
It must be, because let's see her back doing what she cares about. She'll be comfortable around that, not necessarily putting her into things that she may not necessarily believe in, but this is something she wants to leave her mark on, just as Prince William wants to leave his mark on the homeless project, getting money in from big companies, £1 million, I think, from Homebase, and all this sort of thing to try and find a way to alleviate their problem. We know both of them want to feel that they're doing things. They're just not cutting ribbons, they're leaving their mark. And the early learning, I think, in reading the report, it sounds like it's a wonderful initiative that could reap benefits. So full marks to her, and let's hope we see plenty of doing that, because she will be happy in that environment.
And Russell, you did another story. You've been on a roll this week. Another great story. Well done, mate.
I don't even know what day it is.
When is it the weekend? You did another great story earlier this week about how that kind of comeback is being kind of plotted, that former advisors of William and Kate's have been drafted back in.
So the strategy is essentially to lean on other people's experience, and I think that's quite, you know, gracious of them to not say, you know, we know what we're doing, because they probably do need a few extra hands on deck at the moment. So, as I said, it's very, very much got to look to the future. As Rupert mentioned, she needs to be comfortable in that environment, and hopefully we'll get a bit more normality rather than the madness that we've been experiencing.
King Charles is determined to attend Trooping the Colour despite his cancer battle, sources have claimed, with this year's event set to take place on the 15th of June. I mean, Emily, Trooping the Colour, the King's birthday parade, it's always a big, big spectacle. Those big events are what he's had to remove himself from while he's going through his cancer treatment. And, I mean, this would be quite a landmark event if he is able to take part, wouldn't it?
I'm sure he will strain every sinew during his Canadian Air Force exercises that he's still doing every morning to make sure that he is there. I suspect we probably won't see him on horseback. Maybe we will. I mean, in the fresh air, that will be fine. Obviously, he's not been able to do those public engagements with many members of the public that he so loves to do, and he gets so much energy from those kind of crowds and those public engagements. And we might see him in an open carriage, perhaps with the Queen, but I'm sure he will absolutely want to be there. It is, you know, his official birthday. Obviously, his real birthday is the 14th of November, when the weather probably won't be as nice. Hopefully, it won't rain in June because with the lovely British weather. But and I think it's very important. I mean, we have, in comparison to obviously the Princess of Wales, we have seen quite a bit of the King. We've with independent photographers and videographers come in to record his Commonwealth Day service message, to take pictures of him meeting Rishi, the PM, or Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor. There was a big engagement meeting veterans of the Korean War, 70-year anniversary this week. He would have hoped very much to be hosting that at Buckingham Palace. Instead, Princess Anne kind of stepped in and did take his place and made a speech. But he was able to greet some veterans privately at BP, which was really nice.
And from the Queen's birthday parade, at what age did the Queen stop riding her horse? So that's
in her 60s.
So he's 75.
Yeah, he's amazing.
So, and presumably hasn't been riding much.
No.
So actually, him being in a car, if that's the way they do
or
it,
a
carriage, then, and he gets a chance as Commander-in-Chief, because it's his service role he's so important, and particularly when it comes to the King's birthday parade, it's important that he's it's not Trooping the Colour, we actually call it the King's birthday parade in proper circles, but anyway, there we go. So
true military man. Military man.
Sorry.
We dumb it down.
Yeah,
it's Trooping the Colour.
You've dumbed it down. But anyway, the King's birthday parade on the 15th of June, I hope he finds a way to be there. It's, as you say, it's open air, and if he can just be able to sit comfortably, that might be something, whatever we've been treated for, that he's able to review the troops on that day. I'm sure he'll be straining every sinew to be there.
And isn't it the Irish Guards who are trooping their colour? And obviously the Colonel...
That is, we had the furore over the earlier parade, and whether the Princess of Wales would be there or not.
Well, because they stupidly sort of gave out, you get these military documents, and it comes out what the plan is, because there are 3 rehearsals. The Major General, then there's one before, and then there's 3 rehearsals, and it's reviewed by a different person. So the second one is the one that Kate was expected to be at, but the military obviously hadn't at that stage, because that was just assumed she would. But they obviously then didn't talk to the Kensington Palace and saying what's going on. So they got themselves into a pickle about that.
Meanwhile, Queen Camilla has been out and about this week. She's been hopping around between the Isle of Man, and she's in Northern Ireland today.
Yeah, she is. I mean, very important for her to be there on behalf of the King, and I think that talk about community cohesion. This is, it's sort of this resurgence of Camilla. It's been incredible, really. I mean, it'd be taught in PR masterclasses for decades to come, I think. And what I will say about Camilla, whenever you are on engagements with her, she is absolutely first class, and I think that she gives it her all. She's rolled up her sleeves and got on with the job, and you can absolutely see that is exactly what she's loved to do over the last few weeks.
The crowds were fantastic. It was 2003, I think, was the last royal visit. But to see that
to the Isle of Man,
to the Isle of Man,
yeah. So she was conferring city status on Douglas. Now that was done as part of the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee. The King should have been there. Obviously, Camilla flying solo for it. But yes, you described the welcome.
It's just
Rupert.
fantastic to see that rehabilitation. And she's 76. It's not as if she's in the getting on a bit, with all due respect. But she has not got the age mentally of a 76-year-old. And as you say, people like seeing you because you do warm to her. She is now the lovable granny.
Well, and speaking of which, there was a baby Louis that she met in the crowds, and she happened to acknowledge. She said, "I've got a grandson, Louis. Bit of a handful." Now, are we talking? There are 2 Louis, aren't there?
No, it nearly spiralled out of control.
It's not Prince Louis.
It's not Prince Louis. There's Louis Lopez as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
the Palace were happy to confirm that.
They did. Yeah,
she's talking about Louis Lopez.
They were
her
quick
daughter's
on the phone after
son.
that mishap. So yeah, interesting.
She was not casting aspersions on Prince Louis.
Well, that's all right. We know he's a handful.
A lovable handful. That's what endears him to us all, isn't it? Now, we talked about the questions over photoshopping. A photograph of Queen Elizabeth II with her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, which was released last year, was digitally enhanced. That has been revealed by a global picture agency. It was shared in April of last year to mark the late monarch's, what would have been her 97th birthday. And the portrait was taken by the then Duchess of Cambridge, Kate, in August 2022 at Balmoral, just weeks before the Queen's death. The picture's been in public for nearly a year, but Getty Images placed an editor's note on Monday stating that the image has been digitally enhanced at source. And this, I guess, is because of the furore over the Mother's Day picture. They're now going back over every other picture that has been taken.
I mean, I think we need some perspective here. And, you know, where does it end? Are we going to go back through the whole back catalogue of every single image that Kate has taken? You know, we knew there was some editing in previous images, you know, Louis' missing finger on a Christmas card. However, I get the whole issue over the image, the Mother's Day image of Kate and the children, because of the situation that had been allowed to manifest itself with Kensington Palace not putting any information out, or indeed the Princess of Wales herself. However, I think everybody needs to calm down somewhat and sort of put this to bed now, because this is frankly getting a bit ludicrous.
I think all of us here have got children, and I think all of us and most people kind of, you know, watching this whole unfold over the last couple of weeks have said the same thing. With young children, it's difficult to get pictures of them.
Especially
there were 10 of them. And you know, look, the late Queen was in her latter weeks of life.
Yeah.
You're not going to have her sitting there for hours while every single child is not picking their nose or blinking or, you know, pulling someone's hair.
And the way the protocol works, even with the family, they would have all assembled and then the Queen would have come in.
Yeah.
And then Kate probably would have had maybe like 30 seconds or so.
If that,
and then she probably would have the Queen Elizabeth would have left again. So it would have been very, very difficult. And probably that picture was like this one, a composite of what was taken then, and maybe, you know...
And it was a family photo initially. It was taken for family purposes, wasn't it? It happened to be released many months later.
Yeah, many months later, and we hadn't seen it. It was just, again, trying to do something nice to commemorate the late Queen's birthday, as they did for Mother's Day, and unfortunately just been caught out. But I do think this is the time for perspective now, because it's been quite the ride over the last few weeks.
On the subject of photographs, Meghan has called in a top photographer for a glamorous photo shoot of Archie and Lilibet. We haven't seen too many photographs of the children, Archie turning 5 in May. New York-based Jake Rosenberg flew to California earlier this month, where he took a series of pictures of Meghan on her own, Meghan cooking, and her with the children. And that raised questions. Well, are the children going to be part of this whole American Riviera orchard? Have I got it right?
Yes, you did well done.
Did I do well? One of my favourite descriptions of that I read was this the what 3 words address for Montecito, actually, because how else would you come up with the name? Do we believe that these were private photographs?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a stretch if they then going to start, you know, marketing their children for commercial gain because of everything that's been said in the past about privacy and whatnot. But it'd be very interesting, you know, regardless of what Harry and Meghan do, the world will be watching, and we'll always.
Do you think they will be airbrushed, these photographs, in any way? Just slightly...
Rupert, comparisons, as my late father said, comparisons are invidious. I suspect that Meghan asked Jake to come and do some lovely pictures of her for her commercial.
While you're here.
American Riviera Orchard. While you're here, please can you also do some lovely family portraits?
For our own family album.
Because actually, when you look at everything that Harry and Meghan have done so far with their children, there's been very, very little of their faces. There's been a few pictures when they were very little. They'll have changed a lot. They want to protect their privacy. They do go to local daycare in Montecito, as well as having a nanny. And so they would want... And Archie, I'm not quite sure with the American system, but he'll be starting school quite soon, I think. He's at nursery at the moment. And so they will want to protect their privacy as much as possible. And also, of course, there's the security angle, which we know that Harry is very exercised about. So I don't think we'll be seeing those pictures. And
I have to say, we've dwelled a lot on the conspiracy theories around the Princess of Wales. That is absolutely nothing new for the Sussexes, is it?
No, I mean, this all started. I mean, this job got absolutely bananas, I think, when Harry and Meghan sort of got married, and then the trolling of Meghan started. It's been very well documented. And she knows more than anyone. I mean, perhaps she, you know, could lend a hand to Kate and William about how to deal with it, but you know, maybe not.
We'll wait with bated breath.
So we've had the launch, the soft launch, I guess, of American Riviera Orchard, but what else is in the frame? Harry and Meghan could struggle to relaunch their Sussex brand, apparently, in the UK, as some PRs may not be keen to work with them. That's according to an industry expert. Speculation, Russell, that they're looking to kind of get a stakehold back here, launch themselves again, change the narrative?
Well, they kind of need a rebrand, don't they?
Yep.
I mean, Harry has been involved in litigation after litigation, and Meghan has taken a back seat. So she's wanting to launch. I was about to say American Riviera Orchard, and I thought I'd get tripped up. But listen, she's obviously got irons in the fire. He's still dealing with the litigation that he's involved with. And I think they kind of need to come together and realise what their joint brand is. But I still think people will want to work with them. I mean, they're still global superstars, whatever you think of them.
My feeling is that they're very much doing their own individual thing now, that they're not coming, that they're sort of...
yeah, that's interesting.
They're coming apart. I didn't want to say divorcing, because they are not divorcing. They're very happily married, but they are divorcing their kind of Sussex brand. Yes, they still use their titles, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, but American Riviera Orchard is very much Meghan's thing, going back almost to her roots in terms of the TIG, that lifestyle blog. It's cooking, it's gardenware, it's utensils, it's making your home look lovely. It's that kind of domestic goddess chic that she really, really enjoys, that she's incredibly good at. She's very stylish, wanting to sort of, pivot perhaps as the kind of the younger, more glamorous, more regal Martha Stewart. Harry's made it very clear. Invictus, charity work, misinformation, ironically, and obviously supporting the armed forces. That's what he wants to do. I do see a kind of differentiation in the way their brands are going.
I think there's power as a couple, though, rather than going their separate ways, because you've seen the sort of Spotify deal fall off a cliff, not being renewed. Whether their Netflix deal is going to be renewed again remains to be seen. But I still think there is power in the two of them coming together.
And actually, on the Sussex brand, interestingly, the royal family website had a bit of a rejig this week, and the Sussexes themselves found their biogs cut from, I think it was 5,000 to 500 words or whatever else, and the fact that they had stepped down as members of the royal family there. But I thought it was interesting, and I don't know how we read this as a potential olive branch, that there was a link to their Sussex.com website on the royal family's own page to say, if you want to find out more information, here it is.
Well, I think the King's not... It's his son.
Yeah.
And he wants to support him. He may not have gone quite as he would have liked, the King, from the way it's the breakdown a relationship between the two brothers. But he's chosen a life in America to make money. And if it becomes good, they will make a lot of money through this brand of whatever it's called. I'm too old to try.
I'm not sure that you are necessarily the clientele that Meghan is aiming for.
Well, I don't know. I can see a copper pan hanging in Rupert's country kitchen.
Olive tree in your country garden.
I'm in my orchard.
In your orchard.
I got one. But anyway, so... where was I? You've thrown me completely. But the olive branch between the family, I think, is a good thing, because, let's be honest, he doesn't seem to have much support from her other side of the family. He still knows that he's part of something that's special, but he's just got to work out how he deals with it, and that's the problem. But at least the King is, on the face of it, trying to find a way to make him feel included.
Thank you very much, guys. We have covered a lot of ground again, and who knows where we are going to be at this time next week. That is all we've got time for this week. Many thanks to Russell, Emily and Rupert. If you want to join in with the debate, please do leave a comment. Make sure you subscribe if you don't want to miss a single episode. We will, of course, be back next week with all of the latest on the royal family. There is no shortage of news. Hope you can join us, and we will see you then.